The Mysterious Old Radio Listening Society podcast. Welcome to the Mysterious Old Radio Listening Society, a podcast dedicated to suspense, crime, and horror stories from the golden age of radio. I'm Eric.
I'm Tim.
And I'm Joshua.
We love mysterious old-time radio stories, but do they stand the test of time? That's what we're here to find out. Today is our annual Valentine's Day episode, in which we invite one of our wives to pick an episode, and this year our wife is mine, Shanan.
And I picked Dark Journey from Suspense. Dark Journey was written by Lucille Fletcher, author of one of radio's most famous plays, Sorry, Wrong Number. During the 1930s, Fletcher worked for CBS as a music librarian, publicity writer, and most significantly, a typist. Between 1934 and 1939, Fletcher typed and read hundreds of radio plays, slowly but surely mastering the form.
In 1940, on a road trip with her husband, film and radio composer Bernard Herrmann, Fletcher noticed an odd-looking man on the Brooklyn Bridge. The same man appeared again on the Pulaski Skyway Bridge. This strange experience gave her the idea for her first original radio play, The Hitchhiker. Written for Orson Welles, The Hitchhiker made its debut in 1941 on The Orson Welles Show, a later iteration of the Mercury Theater on the Air. CBS was so pleased with the play, Welles was invited to perform it again for Suspense. 20 years later, Rod Serling adapted the play for The Twilight Zone.
Fletcher's greatest radio success came in 1943 when Suspense aired her play Sorry, Wrong Number, starring the First Lady of Suspense, Agnes Moorehead. Audiences were transfixed and demanded to hear the story over and over again. Orson Welles called it the greatest single radio script ever written. And in 1948, Fletcher adapted the story for a feature film starring Barbara Stanwyck.
Fletcher went on to write novels, screenplays, and even the libretto for an opera based on Wuthering Heights. But she is best remembered for her contributions to dramatic radio. In an interview with the Washington Post, Fletcher said, "Writing suspense stories is like working on a puzzle. You bury the secret, lead the reader down the path, put in false leads, and throughout the story remain completely logical. Each word must have meaning and be written in a fine literary style. Mysteries are a challenge, a double task for the writer, for the reader is aching to solve the puzzle before you do."
It's late at night, and a chill has set in. You're alone, and the only light you see is coming from an antique radio. Listen to the sounds coming from the speaker. Listen to the music, and listen to the voices.
Now, Roma Wines, R-O-M-A, made in California for enjoyment throughout the world. Roma Wines present Suspense.
Tonight, Roma Wines bring you Miss Nancy Kelly and Miss Kathy Lewis in Dark Journey, a suspense play produced, edited, and directed for Roma Wines by William Spear.
Suspense, radio's outstanding theater of thrills, is presented for your enjoyment by Roma Wines. That's R-O-M-A, Roma Wines. Those excellent California wines that can add so much pleasantness to the way you live, to your happiness in entertaining guests, to your enjoyment of everyday meals. Yes, right now a glassful would be very pleasant, as Roma Wines bring you Nancy Kelly and Kathy Lewis in the premiere of Lucille Fletcher's radio play for two actresses, Dark Journey. Tonight's study in
Suspense.
Today I am going on a journey. I am going to see Anne Brodie again after 15 years. When the news came yesterday, terrible as it was as though a shadow had lifted from my life. A secret horror that I could never quite forget. I have been afraid of Anne Brodie now for 15 years, but there is no need to be afraid of her anymore. secret has been locked in my heart together with all shameful, horrible things. Yet I've never gone on a journey like this one, but what it comes back. There have been times when I couldn't bear the whistle of a train, flung out long and mournful over the lonely countryside. I couldn't bear the smell of a day coach, the feel of the plush seats, the rattle and bustle. Only because everything came back. Every detail of that long and terrible weekend we spent together 15 years ago.
Oh, Alice, we're off.
Thank goodness.
I don't think anybody saw us, do you?
No, only old Mr. Hodges, the station master, and he's no gossip.
I wouldn't want anybody to know. Not that I care, but you know how the tongues wag in this town.
Well, it's much better to be perfectly sure of your plans before you pass the word around. Then if you and Clyde don't settle things, nobody will be any the wiser.
If we don't settle things, well, there's no if about it. But Clyde and I are practically engaged.
Did you get his letter yet about us coming to New York?
Uh-huh.
Well, for goodness sake, why didn't you tell me? What'd he say?
Oh, nothing much. He's no letter writer, just that he was glad and that he's been busy, and he's going to call us at the hotel.
Oh? He can't meet us at the train?
No. It seems it's his mother's birthday, and he'd promised to take her to lunch in town. We'll be getting in just around that time. He's terribly devoted to her, you know, has been ever since his father died.
Oh, I see. You're very much in love with him, aren't you, Anne?
Terribly.
Yet you really see him so little. How long has it been now? 3 months?
3 months and 6 days. But it doesn't really matter.
No.
I know Clyde loves me and I love him. There's a bond between us, and nothing will ever break it.
Well, as long as you feel that way, it's a wonderful way to feel. But I don't think you ought to let it drag on like this much longer, Anne. I really don't.
Oh, don't worry. We'll settle it this time once and for all. You'll see. When we get on this train again, I'll be wearing his engagement ring on my finger.
Oh, doesn't anybody ever open a hotel window?
3 o'clock. Thought he'd have called me by now.
No, he's probably tied up with his mother. Come on, let's go down to the drugstore and have a sandwich. Aren't you just starved?
No, I don't feel hungry. You go, though. I'll wait.
Oh, come on. The clerk will take the message for you.
No, I want to be here myself.
Well, why don't you call him?
I can't if he's at a restaurant.
Well, maybe he didn't go. Maybe he's home, sick, or at the office.
No, it wouldn't look right. He's got to call me. I don't know why he doesn't.
I don't know why either. In fact, why couldn't we all have had lunch together at that restaurant? I mean, he's not exactly poor, is he? Don't you want to take a bus ride or see the sights or anything?
Later, Alice, after he's called. Hello? Yes? Oh, yes, this is Miss Ann Brody. What? He left a message. Oh. Thank you.
What is it?
He stopped by and left a message. He has a previous engagement. A previous engagement when he knew I was coming to New York this weekend only to see him.
Well, maybe it was something he couldn't get out of. Maybe on account of his mother's
But he already gave her today. And after all he knew I was coming, he knew I'd want to be with him every possible minute.
Well, maybe that's the trouble, Anne. Maybe he doesn't want to be pinned down. Maybe you expect too much.
That he was right here in the hotel and he didn't even... Oh, he's grown away from me. He's not mine anymore. Alice, you know what Clyde has meant to me these 3 years, how I've lived for him and worshipped him. It's just as though my world had been cut away. It's like having a lump of ice for a heart. Alice, Clyde is my heart. Oh, I've got to see him. I've got to tell him.
Oh, Anne, dear, wouldn't you like to lie down?
No, I can't lie down. I'm going to sit here in this chair by the window. I wish you'd go, Alice. I want to be quiet and think about him.
Anne, I wouldn't.
Something's happened to him. There's some barrier. I've got to wish it away, to break it down.
What are you talking
I can do it, you know.
Anne?
Please go. Please.
Don't tell me it's 9 o'clock. I didn't mean to sleep so late. We better get up and get breakfast.
Alice, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? He hasn't called me. I haven't slept.
Why don't you call him, Anne? Call him and have it out with him once and for all.
No, I couldn't.
Well, maybe there's something bothering him. Maybe it's some family situation. After all, his mother didn't have lunch with you yesterday. Maybe there was a reason.
What reason could there be except that she didn't want to meet me? She doesn't want him to marry anybody. She wants him all to herself.
Well, isn't that enough to upset any fellow? Oh, come on. We'll get to the bottom of this thing. What's his number? I'll get it for you.
I haven't his number. I never called him at home. But his address is 3254 Sunset Drive, Riverdale, New York.
3254 Sunset Drive, Riverdale, New York. Hello. Hello, operator. This is room 351. We want to put in a call to Riverdale, New York. 3254 Sunset Drive, Riverdale, New York. The name is Dexter. Mr. Clyde Dexter. Will you get it for us, please?
What did she say?
She's looking it up. There it is. She's ringing. Here, you better take it now.
Oh, no. No, just 1 minute. 1 minute. Let me get my breath. Let me think of what I'm going to say. Hello? Is this the Dexter residence? This is Miss Ann Brody speaking. I wonder if I might speak to Mr. Clyde Dexter, please. Thank you. Clyde? Oh, Clyde, this is Anne. Oh, I'm fine, thank you. Oh, Clyde, I've been waiting here at the hotel for you to call, and Alice and I have to spend the morning out, and we thought we'd better let you know we wouldn't be in just in case you wanted... Oh, yes, Clyde, I know you said you had a previous engagement, but I thought... Well, you see, Clyde, I'm only going to be here today, and we get to see each other so little, I was wondering... What's that, Clyde? Yes? Yes? Well, no, I didn't. What did you say, Clyde? I didn't understand. You're what? You're... Oh, Clyde. Oh, Clyde, it's not true. It can't be. But, Clyde, wait. But, Clyde, you can't do this to me. I've considered myself engaged to you.
Anne, give me that phone.
No. Oh, no. I just want to say goodbye to him, please.
No. Anne, don't look that way.
What did he say? He told me he's engaged to marry a New York girl this September.
Oh, Anne. Well, he just isn't worthy of you. He couldn't have been if he treats you like this now.
I love him. I'll love him till the day I die.
Anne, I'm sorry. I'm...
Oh, please, Alice, please, don't talk. Don't come near me or go away, will you, just for a little while?
No, I won't leave you. I can't leave you when you look like that.
Go away, I said. Oh, do you hear me? Go away. I want to be alone. I want you to go away. I have work to do.
Work to do?
I'm going to will him to come back to me. I'm going to make him come to this hotel through heaven and hell, and they're dragging him away from me.
Oh, Anne.
I can do it. I've done it before. I've made him write to me. I've made him call me up out of a clear sky after months and months. I willed him to speak to me the very first time I saw him when he was just a stranger. I willed him to give me his fraternity pin last year at the spring dance, and I can do it. I can do it. If only I try hard enough, and if you're absolutely quiet. Clyde. It's no use. He's too far away. I'll have to come closer to him. We're going out.
Going out? Where to?
To Riverdale.
Riverdale?
I want to look at his house to see where he lives. There's something there. Someone who's holding him back.
Anne, let's go back to Denford. Let's take a train tonight, any train, and get out of here for good.
No, I can't go home. I told you that before. I can't until I have his engagement ring on my finger.
For Suspense, Roma Wines are bringing you Nancy Kelly and Kathy Lewis in Dark Journey by Lucille Fletcher. Roma Wines' presentation tonight in radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense.
Between the acts, this is Truman Bradley for Roma Wines with a little domestic drama. It's happened to you before and will happen again. You're relaxed in your easy chair, coat off, contentedly reading your evening paper. Your wife is probably tidying up after dinner. The doorbell rings. Sure enough, it's guests who just dropped in. Now, famed hostess Elsa Maxwell tells us how she handles these surprise visits. She says, "I always keep Roma California sherry on hand to welcome unexpected guests. Serving Roma sherry is so simple, you just pour and hospitality reigns. And because Roma is America's favorite wine, you know your guests will enjoy it. Yes, there's no easier way to gain a reputation for gracious hospitality than by keeping Roma sherry ready for guests. And Roma, America's taste favorite, the wine more Americans prefer, costs no more than ordinary wines. So make a note to get mellow, golden amber Roma sherry tomorrow. Once you try the tempting fragrance and intriguing nut-like taste of Roma sherry, you'll always ask for Roma. That's R-O-M-A, Roma Wines. Remember, more Americans enjoy Roma than any other wine."
And now, Roma Wines bring back to our Hollywood soundstage Kathy Lewis as Alice and Nancy Kelly as Anne in Dark Journey, a play well calculated to keep you in suspense.
It's getting dark. I don't think we ought to be wandering around here like this. There might be strange men.
Here's the street, Sunset Drive, and there's the house. I've seen pictures of it. I'd know it anywhere. Anywhere.
Oh, Anne, please. This is doing you no good.
Oh, hush. I've dreamed about that house, dreamed of myself and him living in it together. I've dreamed of our children playing on that lawn and the sound of music inside and our car standing outside.
But it wouldn't mean a thing to you, Anne, if Clyde didn't love you.
I've dreamed of the years we'd spend together. Well, I even named the children. Clyde Jr. and Peter and Charlotte. That's his mother's name. I never liked it, but I was going to call one child that just to please him. And now, what have I got? Nothing. Nothing. It's gone.
Come on with me, Anne.
Oh, there's a light going on upstairs. Do you suppose it's his room? I wonder if he's home. Clyde. Think of me. Come back to me. Oh, love me, Clyde. Love me. Love me.
Don't, Anne, don't. Somebody might hear you.
Shadow at the window. Oh, it's Clyde. Oh, no. No, it's someone else. It's a woman. A gray-haired woman. Oh, it's his mother, Alice. Clyde's mother.
I don't think he's home, Anne. Let's go back to the hotel.
No, I want to see her. I've heard so much about her. She always turned her nose up at me. He never admitted it, but I knew. He was the only son, and she thought there wasn't anybody good enough, and he was always under her influence, just believed everything she said. I could tell the way he talked. It was always Mother says this and Mother says that. I bet it was she who turned him against me, who picked out that New York girl.
Oh, Anne, please, come on. You're just tearing your heart out.
She's up in his room now. She's straightening his things. She's happy up there. She doesn't care that she's made me miserable. Oh, I can feel it now, Alice. I can feel the barrier in my heart.
Anne, shh. Somebody's coming. Let's go.
We're doing no harm. We can stare, can't we, if we wish? Come on. Come on, we'll walk past the house. We'll defy her. We'll go up and ring the bell, and then when she comes down to answer it, we'll ask, "Is Mrs. Clyde Dexter at home?" And then when she asks us who we mean, we'll laugh in her face.
Oh, Anne, you're just beside
Yes,
yourself.
I am beside myself because I feel it, Alice. He's lost to me as long as she's up there. Oh, I can stand here, out here under the trees, trying to reach him with every bit of soul I possess, but as long as she's there, as long as she's alive, he'll never be mine again.
Anne, this is terrible. You've got to pull yourself together and get some rest. You've been sitting in that chair now for 3 hours.
Please, don't talk. Just let me alone.
You're working on that willpower thing still, aren't you, Anne? And it makes me awfully nervous.
Be quiet. It's coming. Something's coming. Something's going to happen. I feel it all around me.
I'm going to get a doctor if you don't stop.
I feel it. I feel something.
You're just as white as a sheet. You're shaking all over. I absolutely refuse to let this go on. Do you hear? Now, you get into bed.
No.
Let me take off your shoes.
No, leave me alone. It's as though there were a big lump being moved off my heart. As though the ice inside me were going. As though I could cry at last. Oh, it's happened. Oh, thank you, God. Thank you. All right. I'll lie down now. I'll go to sleep.
If you could sleep, you'd feel better. If you just relax.
I've done it, Alice. You'll see. He'll be here in the morning.
You lie down now.
There he is. Didn't I tell you? There's Clyde now. Hello? Yes. Yes, this is room 351. Yes, this is Anne Brody speaking. Yes. It's Riverdale calling. Riverdale. Clyde? She didn't say. Oh. Hello? Yes. Yes, I'm Anne Brody. Why, yes, I'm a friend of Mr. Clyde Dexter. Who did you say this is, please? The police.
The police?
Oh, something hasn't happened to Mr. Dexter, has it? Oh. What? Yes. Yes, my friend and I were out to the house late this afternoon, around 6 o'clock. Well, yes, I did wear a white hat and a green dress, and she... Oh, but we took the subway, the White Plains Express, on the Interborough line from our hotel. We came back around 7. We just walked past the house 2 or 3 times, but... Well, what's the matter? Why are you asking me these questions? No, I haven't seen them. What?
Give me the phone, Anne. Let me speak to them. You're in no condition
Keep away. You know what they're saying, do you? That Clyde's mother has been murdered.
What?
Oh, no. No, I haven't. Yes? No, we didn't. We just came right home. We didn't even ring the bell. Is Mr. Dexter there with you? I see. Well, I'd like to speak to him, please, when he gets through. Will you ask him to call me? Yes. We'll stay here in the room.
Oh, Anne.
It was a hammer. At 8 o'clock tonight. She was struck from behind by an unknown assailant.
Oh, how awful. Well, why did the police call us? What have we got to do with it?
Clyde was home when we walked by the house. He saw us standing there. I'm going to tell him, Alice. I'm going to tell him the truth.
Truth? What truth?
There's always been that power inside me. I've known I had it, and sometimes it frightened me. Things have happened. I've been afraid sometimes to use it, afraid it would turn against me. And tonight it did turn against me.
Anne, what do you mean?
By an unknown assailant. Murdered by an unknown assailant. You know who that assailant was? It was me.
Anne, are you crazy? You were up here in the room every minute.
I was up here in the room, but I was wishing she were dead. I was willing him to come to me. I was trying to destroy the barrier.
Surely you can't believe that, Anne. It was only a coincidence, a terrible coincidence.
I was trying to bring him back, to touch his heart, but the power didn't touch his heart. His heart's like steel against me. It struck his heart and glanced off and struck her, dead.
Anne, please, you're talking like a
But
lunatic.
you don't understand. People like you can understand. People like you... But there's violence to will. To store it up takes years. To send it out of yourself is like sending a powerful hand with fingers.
Will can't kill somebody, Anne. Not pure will. The body is one thing, the mind's another. Mrs. Dexter is physically dead. Her heart stopped beating. There was a blow. Somebody real, somebody human did that.
She was struck from behind. She was alone in the house. They said the doors were locked. She had no enemies. It came out of nothing, and it went away again. Oh, I never dreamed. I didn't want it to happen that way, but it's getting beyond me. It's assuming forms and accomplishing ends I don't plan. It's turning against me, Alice. Turning against me.
Do you think a police court will believe you? You'll only confuse the testimony. You'll only hurt Clyde. Will, you talk about the power of your will. Did you have any real power these last 2 days? Did it bring Clyde to this hotel? Did it make him love you or even call you up?
Yes. 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 Don't you touch him. I won't let you speak to him. Get away from that phone, Alice.
Do you want to get us in trouble? Do you want us to go to jail and spend weeks in court? He'd put you there. He wouldn't care.
Get away from that phone, Alice.
I don't believe you, do you hear? I think you're mad. You're mad as a hatter.
Get away from that phone.
No!
Anne, you'll ruin your life. You'll fall into suspicion, and people will always think you had something really to do with it. You'll end up in an asylum. The whole world will know he jilted you.
What are you going to say to him? He must be half beside himself as it is. He'll never believe you. What? All right.
Thank you, Alice. You see? It is there, isn't it? I made you do what I wanted. And I can make anyone. Hello? Hello, Clyde. Oh, Clyde, darling, I just heard the terrible news. How terrible for you. I'm so sorry. Yes, Alice and I were out there this afternoon. We came by to say hello, but we got cold feet and came home. Oh, no, Clyde, no, we didn't, not a soul. Oh, yes, my darling, I understand how terribly broken up, and my heart goes out to you. Oh, I will, Clyde, dearest, I will. I'll be right over. I'll help you in any way I know. Goodbye, Clyde.
Anne, you didn't tell him. You're not going to tell him at all.
No. Why should I? He's mine now.
And so Anne Brodie walked out of my life. Walked from me wrapped in her new and terrible strangeness. Somehow I didn't want to play any part in her life again. I didn't go to her wedding when she and Clyde were married 1 year later. To me, there would have been something evil in hearing her voice repeat the sacred words.
I, Anne, take thee, Clyde.
There has been for me a nameless horror in the slow, steady way Anne Brodie fulfilled her plans. The house in Riverdale, the car, the 3 children, Peter, Clyde Jr., and Charlotte. Her happiness, her triumphant motherhood have somehow been hideous to me. I've never heard a train whistle crying through the dawn but what I've thought of her and shuddered. I have been afraid of Anne Brodie now for 15 years. Today, I know I've been a fool. Today, I know that it was a real murderer who murdered Mrs. Dexter with a hammer from the service porch. Today, I'm going on a journey to Riverdale. I am going to see Anne Brodie again, lying will-less and struck down in her coffin, lying innocent and pathetic, lying murdered. Not will nor nameless monsters of the mind could save her from the truth at last. Yesterday afternoon, the weak, long-brooding creature who could not brook domination from mother or wife flung pent-up death against the mistress of his will. Yesterday afternoon, Clyde Dexter struck again.
Suspense.
Presented by Roma Wines, R-O-M-A, made in California for enjoyment throughout the world. This is Truman Bradley for Roma Wines with a tip on how to win praise and increase dining pleasure. Today, millions of clever homemakers are enjoying dinner table compliments by giving everyday dishes tempting new meal appeal. Here's the secret. A glass of red Roma California Burgundy at each place. Try it yourself. Serve robust Roma Burgundy with tomorrow night's piping hot, savory pot roast, tender, juicy steak, or baked fish. Roma Burgundy brings out tasty new flavorfulness from every morsel, wins grateful compliments for your cooking. And notice how the warm, glowing redness of Roma Burgundy adds richness and beauty to your table. Yet, the gracious custom of serving Roma, America's favorite wine, is as inexpensive as it is delightful. Enjoy exciting new dining pleasure tomorrow with delicious Roma Burgundy. Insist on Roma, R-O-M-A, Roma Wines, made in California for enjoyment throughout the world.
This is Nancy Kelly. I'm sure you want to hear next Thursday's Suspense when Joseph Cotton will star as a famous New York criminal lawyer in one of the best-known suspense stories of our time, Ben Hecht's Crime Without Passion. Thank you.
Nancy Kelly will soon be seen in the Paramount picture Follow That Woman. Next Thursday, same time, Roma Wines will bring you Joseph Cotton as star of Suspense, radio's outstanding theater of thrills.
Produced by William Spear for the Roma Wine Company of Fresno, California. Next week, part of the country goes on daylight saving time. If your area remains on standard time, tune in Suspense 1 hour earlier. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
That was Dark Journey from Suspense here on the Mysterious Old Radio Listening Society podcast. Once again, I'm Eric.
I'm Tim.
And I'm Joshua.
And it is our special Valentine's Day episode where on Valentine's Day week we bring in one of our spouses.
Many wives.
Yes, we all have hundreds of wives. This year, our special guest is my wife, Shanan. Welcome, Shanan.
Thank you. Welcome.
And
glad to be one of the wives chosen.
She will still be your wife next year, but she may not make it on the podcast.
Well, we'll see again.
Shanan, why did you pick Dark Journey from Suspense? What attracted you?
So Joshua actually helped me in choosing because I don't have the deep knowledge that all of you do of radio dramas. And this is the one I chose of the couple he sent to me because, well, first of all, I've fallen in love with Lucille Fletcher, so it was hard for me not to choose a Lucille Fletcher play. But the way that she writes and something that Suspense is so good at, that I actually know now, is that it builds so beautifully. And it was a really interesting story of two women and the, sort of the woman problem. There's a lot to it, but I really liked it.
Before we delve into it, tell us and our listeners, what's your background with old-time radio and where did you find it and why do you like it?
Well, I got married to you.
Right.
And truly, that was my first, foray into it. And then I've really come to love it. I've always loved the movies from the same period and the writing from the same period. So how I hadn't discovered it before, I don't know. But
Well, a lot of people haven't.
I guess I had friends and I went riding on my bike. No, I'm just kidding.
Burn!
I know, that was a burn.
What other shows, old time radio, have you listened to and that you enjoy?
I Love a Mystery. Well, all the ones from your podcast, obviously.
Yes!
Nice.
Yeah.
Any particular ones from our podcast that you were like, oh, that was cool? Or
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, you're putting me on the spot here, but the one that I'm really entrenched in now is the yellow wallpaper. It killed me.
it was very well done.
I'm killed. Yeah, it's really, really good. Yeah.
All right, so Joshua, you sent her a bunch of episodes to listen to, and this was one of them. What's your background with this episode, and why did you select this for her?
I just recently went through and listened to a lot of Lucille Fletcher suspense episodes because I realized we've talked about her in the podcast, and I went like, well, I know The Hitchhiker and Sorry, Wrong Number, and I'm not sure I'm familiar with some of her other stories. And there are a lot of great ones. They'll probably show up on the podcast down the road. But this one interested me, and I thought Shannon would like it because it's written for two women. And so it's this, well, two things. From a writing standpoint, how to structure a suspense episode where you never really feel the lack of other actors, which I think this successfully does, but also that there just weren't many radio shows that had just women from top to bottom.
Right.
And so it stood out to me for that reason.
In fact, they didn't even let us hear, what's his name?
Clyde.
Clyde,
on
right.
the other end of the telephone call, which they would usually do.
Yeah.
Right.
You would hear that hollow telephone sound, and we'd hear him, but there's a whole other thing I want to delve into. I thought that scene in itself, just that conversation with Clyde on the phone, was brilliant and suspenseful that we couldn't hear him, but I think also intentional not to hear a man.
Well, I can hear this story told from Clyde's perspective. It would be a
Right.
really cool story. You know, the slow descent of madness and these women who, you know.
And that's one of the other things I think are interesting is it's a sort of sly, subversive thing on Lucille Fletcher's part is that Alice really plays the traditional male role. If they weren't limited to two actresses, because she's the rational one, she's the one who talks sense, and so by making it a play for two women, the women are not portrayed as hysterical other than Anne. So
Right.
you get this sort of dichotomy going.
And
that
she
really
is that
interesting.
voice where typically, of all the radio I've been listening to, it would be like, you're hysterical, Anne. Instead, I mean, she does say she's mad, but that leads up to it. But the first couple times she's like, you know, that might be why he doesn't like you. you're kind of, it's a little heavy, Anne. You might want to step back a little bit. You know.
I wrote in my notes before I knew how this ended, I wrote, I think Clyde's dodging a bullet here.
Well, and it is that, but she is that voice, but it's this caring friend voice, which is very interesting because typically it is from that male
it doesn't
perspective.
have the power relationship
Right.
based on it.
Pull yourself together, woman.
And the fact that we
You
have
reflect poorly on me.
exactly because Alice is there though,
Yeah.
Anne doesn't represent all women. Then she represents a human being who's scary and losing it instead of typical woman.
Right.
Right. The idea of Alice was extremely essential to get us through this, to have the rational. And what I love, and as we all know, how women were perceived and represented has not always been great to be, but the idea that they both didn't become stereotypical women that were both freaking out, and it's because it was written by a woman. And before we delve any more further into it, I think it's worth pointing out just really what Lucille Fletcher accomplished by being a radio writer and to be given this full reign to do not just cutesy stories. We were talking earlier, I've been listening to old radio of female detectives, and
I get that for you for Christmas.
yes, you did.
It's no big deal. We can edit that out. That was gross. I don't like that.
But they aren't allowed to be, tough, hard-boiled cops, other than, which I will play for you later, the Mercedes McCambridge one that she did,
Yeah.
which was they allowed her to be just a person and not a woman. But this wasn't allowed.
Capital W.
And they let her write these beautiful, traditionally written by men plays. And so I just think it's It's a phenomenal look into old-time radio to see what she was able to
I think,
accomplish.
too, because having the narrator, having that relationship between two women, the narrator's sympathy for Anne pulls over to the audience having sympathy for Anne in a way I think would be different if it was a man and a woman.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so
there's a
lovely.
yeah.
Well, you don't hear women in that place very often where, she's not today, that narration that I'm going to take you on this journey. And I absolutely agree with that.
Oh, in that opening line, I've been afraid of Anne Brody for 15 years.
15
now.
years,
Oh, that's a great
And then, but
line.
there's no need to be afraid anymore.
Yeah. And
Whoa.
so so it's a great hook. It gives nothing
it's a
away.
great hook,
It just
yeah.
heightens the suspense and just makes you keep guessing at every turn.
Let's talk about the formatics as a radio drama for a second. I wrote in my notes, train sounds, church bells, traffic. The Foley is
great.
fantastic.
That's what it's like having a conversation with Eric.
Train sound,
Church bells.
church bells, gong.
And the device of when the church bells
Yeah.
came and when they were played is so beautifully put together as a radio drama. Forget about Lucille Fletcher wrote it, and it's all that is significant. But this is a beautiful radio play, period.
Yeah, well, you've got Lucille Fletcher writing it, but then you've got the people behind Suspense producing it, and they
Right.
know
And
what
they
they're doing.
really know what they're doing. Those church bells, I just realized, as I was listening to it, God, these aren't random. These are specific, and how loud they were. It made it sound like, are you in the church?
They're in New York, so I'm wondering if that's a specific cathedral
I
that
Yeah,
they're supposed to
right.
reference, but I wasn't sure.
Did you
because it
pick up
plays
on
such
the
an important
subtle
part.
traffic sounds? Mm-hmm. It's so in the background, but there it was. It reminds me, and you're going to give me grief for this, but if you listen, they will. Trust
Okay,
me, you're not in
cool.
here a lot.
I'm
They give me
sitting
grief
back
a lot. But if you listen to the Foley on Law and Order when they're in the courtroom scenes and you can still hear the traffic outside, I always pick up on that because it's so cool because that is
Right,
a
you don't
studio set.
forget where you are.
But if
Yeah.
you are there, you would hear that subtle, and it's very low, but if you listen for it, you hear it, and you realize how much that adds to the scene. And in this, when they were in the hotel room, or is that where they were, a hotel room, or
That's
some
what I
apartment?
envisioned, a hotel, probably for ladies
Yeah, well,
only,
'cause they-
you know?
There were
So in my mind, this is fun. This was fun for me. There was a little couch. Keep going.
There were moments when they weren't talking, just little spaces, and I go, ooh,
Yeah.
there's traffic.
Yeah, where are
Way
we?
to add that layer of detail that really...
But then
really captures
Riverdale
it.
would be a suburb, I'm assuming, right? So it's that tranquility, the American dream that they leave the
I really was
city.
hoping they were calling Archie. And it turned out to be Clyde.
And you wouldn't even know that Riverdale is a Netflix original based on the Archie comic.
Oh, I do know that because of you.
Of your, yeah. Okay,
But other than that, no,
okay.
I would not.
You mentioned the American Dream. This made me think of our very first episode on this podcast, The House in Cypress
Cypress
Canyon.
Canyon, yes, I
As
thought
in,
of that
it
too.
felt like a critique of that, especially
yeah.
coming from a female perspective, because it's interesting to me that we don't get a counter like we might from maybe a male voice where Alice went on to get married and have kids and do these things. We never hear anything like that. All we hear is the nightmare of Anne.
The house, the car, the lawn, the
Yeah,
kids, which
she's-
she's named. How about that? But, yeah.
Yeah, she's pre-named. Yeah, and so it felt to me as a very covert criticism of this post-war
Well,
American dream.
Even Alice's dialogue and that character is driving that because you could say when you're listening to this, oh, this is so stereotypical. Oh, all I want is to get married, and that's all I want in my life. And if this Clyde doesn't marry me, and I've only known him 3 months, but my God, I got him. Jeez. But Alice actually drives home the point, yeah, that's not that important. You really got your priorities screwed up.
But she does understand the desperation, though.
Yeah,
I mean, and that is such a real thing, you know, that terror. If success is those things, and you can't get them,
And there's not a lot of options.
hey, right? What are you going to do?
Which
Type
very-
radio plays and become famous?
That's just what I was going to
You
say.
know, I mean, seriously though,
That's
I mean,
coming right from
it's
Lucille
gotta
Fletcher.
come from her life in that sense.
Absolutely.
We don't know that, she's not here, but
But you
know
would
what I mean.
assume.
Yeah.
And Alice is very aware of the social mores of the time because she says to Anne when she's going to tell Clyde that she did it with her mind powers,
Yeah.
which we'll talk about that too.
Such
but
a great moment.
Alice says specifically, everyone will know you're jilted.
you'll be broken by it. You won't come out of that okay.
So they're still grappling
Absolutely.
with it all and criticizing it.
On the mind powers, the episode that I thought of as this being a sort of rebuttal critique to was that we listened to recently was If You Believe.
Oh, yes, there is
That
a
sort of-
connection there.
That theme of if you believe it, it'll happen.
Oh,
This was
wow.
like, no, that's magical thinking. And that if you do it, it'll happen. If you
Or make sure you know what you're believing before you believe it.
Yeah, maybe don't stand in front of his house and wish it so.
That red herring was beautiful because I thought this was heading down a supernatural path.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yes,
And I
did too.
She's a
love-
witch. She's a witch. Yeah. You did.
And I kind of was hoping that's what it would be.
It's like, please be a witch, please be a witch, please be a witch.
That's so funny because
Right?
I did not at all.
Really?
And I think because I'm super vulnerable to magical thinking. Like I totally know in my head logically.
Yeah, I get that.
There's no Loch Ness monster. There's no Bigfoot. I don't make
What now?
things happen in my. I'm sorry.
This is a lot.
I don't make things happen in my mind, but I secretly believe that I do.
It's funny because
Right.
before the podcast,
Yeah.
Tim was sitting around going, Bigfoot's going to call me. Bigfoot is going to call me. It's going to happen.
Hey, he might.
He's probably driving right now and just shouldn't.
Bigfoot's mom hates me.
There was a beautiful thing, though, when I was thinking, oh, is it supernatural and is she a witch? As it started to develop that it wasn't, there was no disappointment of that not being where it was going. And I loved where it did go. And there was that suspense twist where we should have saw it coming. Of course he's the guy. Of course he's who killed his mom. But I thought it was laid out so perfectly that, as we've discussed in this podcast before, where we've seen it coming and we're like, oh, you didn't set that up very well, or I just waited for you to reveal what I already knew.
Yeah.
I did not see that coming.
It's because Anne is so just bat poop crazy, right?
Well, she's crazy.
You can't see past
She's in
anyone
love.
else.
She's in love.
She's
No,
crazy.
she's crazy.
She's crazy, and it's written intentionally for us to start thinking about the supernatural element of this. So it was beautifully leading us down a wrong path.
And Lucille was married. Bernard Herrmann, right? He wrote the music for Psycho. So Clyde seems very Norman Bates to me.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
He kills his mom and that's all
kills
I
his
know.
mom. Lived in a
Runs a
motel.
hotel, likes taxidermy. Yeah.
Right. That's what I mean. You know what? Let's just, we'll edit that.
You don't have any idea how many times we say that in the course of a podcast.
Oh, I
do.
know. I listen. Actually, I should know this is probably going to, all right.
We should
Yeah.
rename the podcast. We'll edit that out.
But Tim, you didn't ever think, oh,
No.
she's a witch. She's
But
a
I was
witch.
totally taken in by the ending because I was so focused on her. Like, what's she going to do?
What's
She's going
her
to flip.
deal?
And I
Yeah.
gave no thought to who killed the mom, which says something bad about me, I suppose. But
She had it coming. No, but that's
one of those
interesting.
random hammerhead things.
Yeah, I very much was thinking that, oh, this is going into a supernatural realm.
And I think, too, it's because Alice didn't think that, and I was like,
Right.
Alice is my
Alice
reliable
leads
narrator.
Me. Yes.
Yes. Well, right.
True.
And so you also, like Alice, feel no pity for Anne at the end because she's glad that Anne is dead.
Yeah, she is.
Oh, she's terrified.
That final monologue.
Oh,
from
it's
her,
so beautiful. And I got to hear the intro to this. Lucille Fletcher said that it has to be written in a fine literary prose. I immediately thought of that final speech.
yeah.
It's so gorgeous, just the leading up to that, it was Clyde, right? But it was so beautifully written.
Oh, yeah. Yesterday afternoon, the week-long brooding creature who could not brook domination from mother or wife flung pent-up
Pent-up
death
death.
against the mistress of his will. I mean, that's just like...
I mean, come on. Yeah, that's gorgeous.
And it's gorgeous writing, but back to what Tim was saying is you, at that point, empathize with Alice.
Yeah.
And so when she lays down that judgment, you're like... It's right, Alice.
That was a crazy weekend, Alice. You deserve this moment.
Yeah.
But then it goes on. Yesterday afternoon, Clyde Dexter struck again. it's so simple after that, like, florid,
Yeah.
I love that line, Clyde Dexter struck again, because about 6 seconds before that is where you put it together. And I'm using hyperbole, but, very soon before they went, oh, Clyde did it. And then she said, and Clyde Dexter struck again, and letting us know, yes, you are right. You have put the pieces together. That is what happened. And I love that.
And it's good that she ends on that line because you want to know who is actually responsible for it. Because it walks a fine line. If it was written by a man, it would seem a little more, I think, misogynist in that, like, this woman deserved this.
Well, and for me, listening to it as a woman, that's it. That's the end of the pot. They just jumped the shark right there. But in all sincerity, that idea that our fear makes us vulnerable, that the Anne Brodies of the world, right, are just, Clyde is just looking for them, Crazy guy in the suburbs with his angry mom is looking for her because, she's the one he can control. Even when he's not in the room, especially when he's not in the room, especially when he ignores her,
Weird point to clear up for me is, he's going to marry a New York woman, right?
Oh, I loved that.
And then
those New York women.
God, I hate them.
Oh, come on. Anyway, sorry.
So the mother gets murdered, and she calls him. Where did the New York woman go at that point? Was it explained how he got rid of her? Did I miss that? And
I didn't even think about that.
He just took her back without an explanation as to how that happened.
Maybe the mother was lying about it. I don't know.
She put the mother's head on a pike outside.
That's a great question because I didn't think about it.
Okay, here's
but I hope
the
it's head on a
explanation
pike.
I have for it is that based on what Alice said, and I believe Alice.
Alice is solid.
He was domineered by his mother. So the New York woman was who his mother wanted him to marry. He kills his mother so he can marry his mother, who is really, because Anne Brody is his mother, right? This another domineering woman, right?
No, it's true.
So I think
true.
that's what you're supposed to believe.
I think
tracks.
Or head on a pike. Whatever.
Any other moments that you were struck by?
I love the freaky moment when Anne says she's gonna tell Clyde about her power, and claim that she killed his mother with her thoughts.
And she's like, no. Alice is like...
That's another moment where you have no idea how this is going to end.
Yeah.
You think they're going to both go to jail. This is crazy.
Well, and Alice says it. You don't want to know. She's like, no.
Yeah.
All the hours in court, all the people be in jail. Are you hearing yourself? Yeah. And that's what's so terrifying about Anne. Yeah.
I just think this is just so complex. This is like a thesis paper waiting to happen for
It is, actually. The woman scorn, the desperate woman, it's all turned slightly
on its head. Because again, it's at its heart, it's a criticism of that being the only way to achieve anything. I mean, this is a really strong line for 1940 whatever when Alice says her triumphant motherhood has somehow been hideous to me.
She couldn't even think about it. That's
harsh.
Yeah. She's not getting invited to bridge. Let's just put it that way.
That's back to Eric's point about, like, that's how much power Lucille Fletcher had to write something really out of its time.
And Anne saying, I have work to do, that moment I have work to do, is the beginning of every rom-com from the late 80s through the 90s was, I'm going to make him mine, cue music. But it's like...
My thought was, let's go to work from Reservoir Dogs. So
kind of the same thing,
similar.
But it is interesting that it's like Lucille Fletcher, I'll call it Lucille, like we're buds. But she writes that
Lulu.
she sets it up and then goes a completely different place with it. And that's what I thought was so cool about this.
I will wrap up with my final note, which was, Anne is work. That's what I took from this. Anne's work. That's
about time we got
I have some notes for you to think about.
When you're washing your mom's blood off your hammer.
And when your best friend's like, I want to take a train and stand in front of his house, maybe don't.
Right.
Let it slide, Anne.
Well, let's put it to the vote, everybody. I'm going to say that for a number of reasons, not the least of which it's suspense and hard to fail, that it is a classic and stands the test of time and just beautifully done top to bottom.
Yeah, I was going to say going into am I just going to call every Suspense episode a classic?
Right? We got to find a terrible...
maybe. I might, because this one was a classic.
In the future, let's find a terrible Suspense and tear it apart.
Go to the late 50s, early 60s of Suspense. You will find a lot of dogs in that.
Interesting.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Yes. Tune in, listeners.
Your vote, sir?
Oh, I say this is a classic. I'm surprised it does not have a higher status. It's really an intriguing episode. And for all the reasons we've already said, and I have to emphasize again, just the fact that she's able to navigate this two-person structure. Mm-hmm. She understands this craft. I never, ever feel the absence of any other actors.
Right.
Clyde is a main character, and his absence is a character in this.
Mm-hmm.
And she writes into the story. His characters, he keeps standing them up.
He exists through Anne.
It's weird. I didn't realize until after I had listened to it and taking notes, I went, wait a minute. I didn't hear from anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that phone scene is wonderful. Her talking to Clyde.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And just the beats, and you can hear what Clyde's saying. Mm-hmm. Shannon.
I get to vote?
No, yeah.
Sure.
Says the woman. Yes. No, I absolutely think this is a classic. It's this gem. I think it should be pulled out, dusted off, and studied more. I mean, I want to send it on to people I know who teach and work with, actors. And this is cool.
Extremely well done. All right. Well, Anna's work. And
Wow.
That's what I took.
Oh, there's I have like 4 books for you to read.
Sweetie,
Yes, love.
happy Valentine's Day.
Oh, thank you. And thanks for letting me be here.
All right, Tim, tell them stuff.
Hey, please go visit ghoulishdelights.com. There you'll find other episodes of this podcast, as well as information about live shows that we do. You can see us at the James J. Hill Center once a month, and we'll perform live versions of classic old radio scripts. Find us on Facebook. Find us on Instagram. There's lots of us to find.
And exciting news.
Yes, hey, we have a store now. So if you're just dying to buy some Mysterious Old Radio Listening Society merchandise, some T-shirts, a blanket, so you want to cuddle up and listen. I don't want to picture that. That's weird. Whatever you do with a blanket, you can get that.
Sweatshirts.
Notebook to take notes on feminist readings.
So yes, that is going to be at threadless.com. I can't remember what the address is. It's not a great plug, is it?
No, we'll have a link.
There will be a link on our website.
ghoulishdelights.com.
ghoulishdelights.com.
Just everything's there.
Also, we're kind of excited. We've just recently made new podcast friends with the people at Breaking Walls, and they are doing this exciting podcast that we think you would be interested in, and it is a history of the American radio drama, and it is done as a documentary covering the creation of radio, the rise of radio, the fall of radio. It's dramatic, intense, and it combines interviews, old-time radio clips, original drama, sound scoring, and it's going to build over the weeks and months and eventually build up to what's going on in dramatic radio right now in the 21st century. So subscribe to Breaking Walls everywhere you get your podcasts or go to wallbreakers.com.
All right, once again, thank you so much, Shannon, for being here for our Valentine's show.
Thank you.
And next time
is me. Next time I'm bringing an episode of Nightfall, the Club of Dead Men. Until then.
Look out! Hello? Yes? Oh, yes, this is Miss Ann Brody. What? He left a message. Oh. Thank you. What is it? He stopped by and left a message. He has a previous engagement.